Good evening, everyone. I'm Monica Baum-Campanilla, and on behalf of Education for Tomorrow Alliance, welcome to our Distinguished Speaker Series. We have a great speaker for you tonight to share a little bit about his journey, and hopefully there's some good takeaways that you'll have. As always, we can't see you, but we do encourage you to ask questions, jot down your questions, add them to the chat room, and raise hand when the time is right so that you have the chance to directly ask questions. So to give a little more detail on that, I'm going to turn it over to our program director, Ashley Ouellette.
Hi guys, good evening. My name is Ashley Ouellette. I am the program director with Education for Tomorrow Alliance. Thank you for joining us this evening for our second Distinguished Speakers series this semester. Couple logistics, it is an hour long. We will be going from now until 7:30. We want to be able to respect your time and our speakers' time, so we will end on time. As Ms. Monica said, we cannot see you, we will not hear you. If you put a question in the Q&A section or the chat feature in the time where our speaker is talking, we will answer it on the back end during the Q&A session. But we will come back to that question. During our Q&A part of this session, you will have 3 ways to ask questions. The first one is to click the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. The second one is to put your question in the chat directly to myself or Monica. And the third way is to use the Q&A feature, which again is a button at the bottom of your screen. During that Q&A section, we will ask you to unmute and ask your question. If you are uncomfortable with that, Monica and myself will ask your question for you. If you are part of the CISD Academies, please know that I don't have the forms that you need for your participation in this. Please talk to your headmasters. I will forward your attendance to them and they have that form for you. Please soak up as much of knowledge as you can from this session, and I hope that you get some kind of small nugget that you can take on into the future with you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to one of our board members. She is the Senior Vice President of the Woodforest National Bank, Annie Bradbury.
Thank you, Ashley, and good evening, everybody. I am excited to introduce James Ouellette. James Ouellette is a lieutenant colonel retired of the United States Air Force, and he's owner of Ouellette Management and a commercial airline pilot. James graduated from New Mexico State University with a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science. He later completed his master's degree in operations management from the University of Arkansas. After graduation, he joined the Air Force, in which he served 20 years as a navigator and an aircraft commander. He then retired from the Air Force and began another career in the commercial airline field. He has flown several different aircraft to different locations around the world for 17 years. In addition, James began a property management business, which has been in business for 10 years. James found a passion for flying early in his military career, and he is constantly expanding his knowledge and training with regards to different aircraft and technology. James is currently a 737 captain with United Airlines. Thanks so much, and with that, I'll turn it over to James Ouellette.
Well, good evening, young ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Ouellette, like they said, and I started this journey after graduating from high school back in 1982, a long time ago. And then I went to college at New Mexico State University, 4-year university, and it was quite interesting doing that because I came from a military background. My dad was in the military, and so as we were going through college, I was trying to figure out a way to go and pay for my college. So what I did was I decided to go and join the Air Force ROTC right out of college there, and it allowed me to go into the 4-year degree, having the Air Force go and pay for my education there. And the only thing I had to do was go in as a navigator, pay them 4 years back as a navigator, and after college, and then that was completed. So after my University of New Mexico College, where I went to school at with my computer science degree, I went and entered the Air Force flying the B-52 aircraft. From there, I realized just exactly what was happening with the navigators in the B-52, that they were going away because with the invention of some of the technology, for example, the GPS, they did not need the navigators anymore. So I said to myself that if I was going to stay in this man's Air Force, the only way I was going to do that was to become a pilot. So I went to get my private pilot's license while I was still in the Air Force doing that. I accomplished that private pilot's license. I applied with the Air Force to go to pilot training, and they finally accepted me. So I went to pilot training back in 1992. And out of pilot training, I got to fly as a KC-135 pilot. And I did that for my last 15 years in the Air Force. So 5 years as a navigator flying the B-52, and then about 15 years as a pilot flying the KC-135. Multiple locations, like they were telling you. I started off at Mather Air Force Base out in California, went to Castle Air Force Base down in California, to learn how to fly the B-52. And then I went to Acre Air Force Base in Arkansas, where I was an actual crew member there. From that, I went to pilot training at Laughlin Air Force Base in Texas. Did about 52 weeks of flight training there in Texas. So it was about 1 year. And then I went from there into Kadena Air Base, Japan. From there, all in between that time, had a chance to get married married my wife, Allison. When we went on over to Japan, we went and had my son Morgan flying out of the KC-135 out of there. We went to Spokane Air Force, which is called Fairchild Air Force Base up in Spokane, Washington, where we had our daughter. And then from there, we went to Scott Air Force Base in Illinois. And then that's when 9/11 hit. Finished in Scott Air Force Base in Illinois. And then we went on over to, went back to Fairchild Air Force Base, where I finished out my career in the KC-135. From there, after 20 years, it was time for me to go and do something else. So I decided to go into the airlines. I got all of my tickets, got all of my, and we can talk about getting into tickets and all that here in a minute, but I got all of my stuff done to go into the commercial airlines, and started off with a regional airline, Mesa Airlines, did that for about 9 months, and then went to United Airlines and started flying for United in the Airbus, the 319 and 320 aircraft. From there, that was back in 2008, 2009, and from there, the recession hit, and I got furloughed. So with that being said, after I got furloughed, I needed to go and do something else. So I started going into property management, where I started my own business with regards to managing properties. I did that for about 10 years, and then they started to call me back to United after the furlough was done. Time started getting better, and I started going back to the airlines. And in 2018, I went back to United, started flying the Airbus again. Then I moved on over in 2020 during COVID and started flying the 757, 757. And then in 2021, I went and changed over to the 737, where I became an aircraft commander or a captain in the 737. And I've been flying the 737 ever since. So it's been quite a journey as far as myself is concerned. But the biggest thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is that there are many ways to get into the aviation industry. Okay, many ways. And the path that I chose was the Air Force. And that path, the way that I chose the Air Force was through college, a way to go and get my my college education paid for myself, because my family wasn't able to go and do that. So with that being said, allowing myself to get that Air Force ROTC scholarship was a key to my success in this aviation career. The Air Force ROTC scholarship, there's a bunch of different ways that you can go and get the Air Force ROTC scholarship there, and which is kind of fascinating because you can go. And the path that I took was through a navigator technological degree, because I went and got my computer science degree. But to get my computer science degree, I had to have to get them to pay for it, I had to have that technological degree. So I couldn't go there and get some type of liberal arts or go and get a music degree or anything else. It had to be some type of technology like engineering or like computer science, biology, chemistry are all considered technological degrees there. So from that, getting into the Air Force and seeing how things changed in the Air Force had me make my decisions quite early on with regards to how my path was going to go from the navigator world. So once I saw how things were progressing in the Air Force, things change. And so my mind with regards to staying into the Air Force, because I love that organization there, the only way that I knew that I could stay in was by changing career paths and going from and away from the navigator world into the piloting world, which is where I was able to go and accomplish that feat there. Went to flight training back in '92, got a KC-135, and then started flying the KC-135 out of Kadena Air Base, and which was rather fascinating because as you are progressing in your flying career, you're continuously moving on up. So I started off in the right seat. We called them co-pilots. And then, so I was a co-pilot for about a year, maybe a year and a half. I had to get about 1,000 hours as a co-pilot. And then I moved on over to become an aircraft commander. So with that, now I'm moving from the right seat on into the left seat. So now while you are flying, you're basically having to change the way that you go and fly with one hand, and you had to go and do it in the other hand. So now you're going to be ambidextrous as you're flying along. From there, about another year later, you kind of keep on moving up, and now you're an instructor. So it takes about a year, maybe a year and a half as a co-pilot, a year as an aircraft commander, and then another year you're going to be instructor pilot. So now you're instructor pilot after about 3 years in the military, and now you're instructing all of these young folks that are coming on up. And if you kind of look at it, we're in charge of a multi-million-dollar aircraft, and we are fresh out of college, so we're about 21 through 25 years old, and now we're in charge of a multi-million-dollar aircraft as you're flying along for the Air Force. So I went and became a co-pilot, and then an aircraft commander at Kadena, and then I transferred bases. So at 4 years, I was just about to become an instructor, and I transferred bases, and I went on over to Fairchild Air Force Base in Spokane. From there, I was an instructor out at the Fairchild Air Force Base, and then I got to go and deploy. A lot of these deployments that you have basically are for operations that were going on. So at that time, Desert Shield and Desert Storm had already finished. Now we were into the maintenance of that operation. It was called Northern Watch and Southern Watch, and that's when those are the operations that I was involved in, because during Desert Shield, Desert Storm, I was in Laughlin Air Force Base learning how to go and fly the aircraft there. From that, let's see. From that, when I was there in 96, 97, 98, I was at the wing, and then after that, 99 to 2000, I went into another program within the Air Force called the Weapons Instructor course, the WIC. So I was a weapons instructor out there at Fairchild Air Force Base. Then I went to Scott Air Force Base in Illinois, where I went into headquarters, and I had to go and do what they call a staff tour. And so, with that being said, with the staff tour, there was no flying. I wasn't flying, but I was making decisions. I was helping to make decisions all this time for the flyers, and then and let's see, then and that's when 9/11 hit. After that, and we went into another wartime mode. And I was there until 2003 when I left and went back to Fairchild Air Force Base, and I went into the wing, and then I was the wing inspector general out there, making sure that everybody was following the policies and procedures that were set for the pilots in the wing to adhere to. And then, so I did that for about 3 years. And then in 2006, I retired from the Air Force. It was time for me to get on out and do something else with my life. And what I chose to do was basically go into the airlines. Now, what I wanted to do is, one way to get into the airlines is definitely through the Air Force or through any other military organization. Could be the Air Force, could be the Marines, could be the Army with the helicopter flying, and it could be the Navy flying their aircraft off of their ships. So definitely the military is one way to get into it. The other way is to go in the civilian realm. So for me, what I had to do is to go and show that I wanted to become a pilot was to get my private pilot's license. And I did that while I was in the Air Force. And I got all of my flying time while I was in the Air Force. The other way that you can do it is go into the civilian route, where you get your own private pilot's license. Then you go and get your instrument rating, you go and get your commercial rating, and then you get your multi-engine rating. And then you do this all on your own after you get those ratings. And then you go and start your flying. You can go and start your flying. Different ways that you can go and start your flying career. You can go and become an instructor, and you can go instruct in the private world, becoming just a commercial flight instructor, or you can be a commercial flight instrument instructor, or you can do a multi-engine instructor. So that is one way that you can get your hours to go and fly in the airlines. The other way is you can just go on out and get a job. For example, you're going to be flying cargo type of aircraft, or you're going to be flying aircraft that are drawing banners. I'm sure you've all seen those airplanes that are flying banners up and down the beaches, like of Florida and Texas, whatnot. That's another way. Being a crop duster is another way. Flying the pipeline, that people that are flying pipelines, taking aerial photos, are another way that you go and start getting your hours. But it all ends up that you need to get at least 1,500 hours before you can go and start entering into the regional airlines. So most of the regional airlines, when I'm talking about the regional airlines, these are the small ones, and you'll see them. They're called United Express, or Delta Express, American Eagle. Those are all of the regional airlines, and those regional airlines will go and lead you into the major airlines, and that's what I call it. So you're kind of like going, from doing it yourself. Basically, you're going through Little League and whatnot into the regionals, which I call the minor leagues, up into the big leagues, into the majors, where you've got United, Delta, Southwest, American Airlines. Those are all the majors. So you finally made it up to the big leagues when you go into the major airlines. So doing the regional airlines, getting your 1,500 hours, and then going into the regional airlines, doing about a year flying in the right seat. That's called the first officer seat now, instead of the co-pilot seat. And then doing a year flying in the left seat, which is the aircraft commander seat, or for the regionals, and your captains now. So you're flying in the left seat as a captain. And you can go on from there if you wanted to go and help out the company by becoming instructors with the airlines in the companies too. So you have instructors and evaluators in the airlines. But the way that I chose was through the Air Force to get into United. Now, things changed. Like I said, when I was in the Air Force, I knew that I didn't want to become a navigator anymore. I wanted to go to the airlines, and so I went into becoming a pilot on the KC-135, and then I went and did a staff tour and came back. Things changed in the airlines too. So when I went in 2007, things were looking pretty good, and then we had a recession in 2008. In 2008, the economy kind of crashed, and all of the airlines were trying to shrink and merge. And for United to go and shrink and merge, they had to go and get rid of some of the pilots. And so I was one of the few that had to I shouldn't say few, I guess one of many that had to get furloughed. And so what they did is they went and released us from flying. We didn't have to go and flying, so they didn't have to go and pay our checks. But whenever the times came back to where they were able to go and hire people, they would have to go and ask us if we wanted to come back. And so they started doing that at about 6 years. At the 6-year point, after I was furloughed, they started asking me if I wanted to come back, and I stayed out for about another 3 or 4 years so that I can go and watch my kids graduate from high school and college. And that was important for me to go and have that family time, because I knew if I went back to the airlines that I would be on reserve, which is basically you are on standby to go and fly pretty consistently. Is a reserve status. There's different statuses in the airlines. And so I wanted to make sure that I was able to go and be there for my kids as they went through and finished off their high school and college careers there. And then I was able to go back to United in 2018 and started flying the Airbus again. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I went and moved on up. So in the airlines, you can go and change aircraft and move aircraft. And I chose to go from the Airbus into the 7576. So the Airbus did a lot of domestic flying. Domestic flying means that you are flying pretty much in and around the States, maybe up into Canada and maybe up into northern Mexico, but you didn't really go over the water, over the pond too much. When I went into the 7576, that's going to be a long range aircraft, and I was able to go down into South America and do a lot of South America flying that I have never done so before. And then I decided that it was time for me to move up into the left seat as a captain, and so I chose to fly the 737 as a captain, and that allows me a little bit more flexibility with regards to where I can go and fly, because the 737 has some longer legs also. So I'm able to go into Central America and into the Caribbean and fly in those locations there, along with flying a lot of the domestic stuff. We do a lot of domestic stuff, here in the States, Canada, and northern Mexico. We were able to go down into southern Mexico, Central America, so Honduras, Panama, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and then out into the Caribbean. So as it go to San Jose, the Dominican Republic, all of the islands, St. Martin, St. Kitts, and all that, and go fly out there. And so that's what I'm currently doing right now. Is I'm in the left seat, and I've also have a qualified first officer in the right seat, and that first officer typically has come from the regional airlines, and they are in the right seat for about 1 to 5 years before they will go and move on out to become a captain. And that's about what it took me, was about 5 years to go from the right seat at the right seat in United to becoming a captain at United all together there. So with that being said, let's see, it's been about 25 minutes, and I'm sure there's some questions that you might have, Miss Ashley and Monica, with regards to the path and the way that have gone. Do you have any questions of me that I have not filled the void yet?
So I'll just go ahead and kick it off as we start to students. If you have questions, please put them in the chat in the Q&A, raise your hand, and we will start to bring you over. But just to kind of get things going, there's sort of lots of interesting pieces, like multiple careers that you kind of made choices around. I think it's interesting, especially in Houston, between the airline industry, between oil and gas. When you talk about being furloughed, right? There's can you talk a little bit about being in a field that has some uncertainty? Right, that you have to adapt, that you have to make changes, that you have to go to that plan B. Like, it sounds like it kind of worked to your advantage a little bit. So you got to see some kid things that maybe you wouldn't. But what would you advise those thinking about a field like that has kind of a little bit of uncertainty, the things that you can't plan for? What do you do to kind of prepare for a plan B, especially because sometimes you just need a paycheck, right? Can you talk about that kind of uncertainty and how you dealt with that?
and as far as that uncertainty, we also had uncertainty in the Air Force too, because I knew that after my 4-year commitment in the Air Force was done as a navigator, that I probably wasn't going to be able to go back into the Air Force. I wasn't going to go and re-enlist, or not, wasn't be re-enlist, but sign up again for another year as a navigator, because I knew the way that the Air Force was going away from the navigator. So it would probably push me on out. So that uncertainty came in there, and I wanted to make sure that I had a plan B. So my plan B was to get my own private pilot's license and see if I can get the Air Force to go and pay for my flight training. And in fact, they did. So, that was plan A. Plan B is if they wouldn't have paid for my flight training, I would have to have gone and continued on with my flight training to get my own commercial certificate, to get my own instrument certificate, to get my own multi-engine certificate, and have to go and fly in that civilian aspect there. But, for me, thank goodness, the Air Force was able to go and pick up the tab for me to go and continue on with my flying career. And after that, while I was in the Air Force and I was going through flight training, oh my God, guess what? Desert Shield, Desert Storm happened. Okay, so that's when Saddam Hussein went and invaded Kuwait. And then, so Desert Shield, Desert Storm happened. And then I was not able to go and do that one because I was in flight training. So I was not able to go to war and help out the Air Force or help out the nation with that. It's because I'm flight training. And then right after flight training was done, then I went into the KC-135. Well, that had already finished. So now we were in the maintenance. It was called Desert Shield, or Northern Watch and Southern Watch. Now we're in the maintenance, making sure that they weren't going to go and do anything again. And then while we were in maintenance doing the Desert Shield, Desert Storm, that's when 9/11 hit with the towers there, and I was in headquarters, so I wasn't able to go and immediately take part in any operations there. But after the fact, I was able to go and take part in some of the operations that were called OEF, Operations Enduring Freedom, Operations Iraqi Freedom, and then we had Operations Noble Eagle here in the States. And I'm sure you've all heard of those particular operations, but I can go into a little bit more detail with regards to those operations and how it affected me. Operations Noble Eagle is where we had to have aircraft, especially tanker aircraft and fighter aircraft, airborne 24/7 so that we would not get another attack like we did for the Twin Towers up in New York and the Pentagon, when the Pentagon got hit. So Operations Noble Eagle is where we had those aircraft airborne 24/7, and we were keeping them refueled so that something wouldn't happen. That was the immediate. We did not want to have another attack on U.S. soil like that ever again. Operations Iraqi Freedom and Enduring Freedom. Enduring Freedom is when we went on into Afghanistan. Iraqi Freedom is when we were up and over Iraq and doing the Northern Watch, Southern Watch, making sure that that did not happen again. And Enduring Freedom was up and over Afghanistan, and we had different bases there where we had to have tanker support to go and help the fighters, who were also in turn helping all of the troops on the ground with regards to their operations there. Well, when I was there doing operations Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom, I was there as a planner because I was, part of that weapons instructor school there, and so I had the expertise with regards to how to go and plan tankers to go into a combat area, and I had to go and set them up. So I had to go and set up air refueling areas. I had to go and set up ways that we can go into and out of the combat area safely, so that we didn't get our own folks to go and shoot us down. And so that's what my role was there. And while I was there, that's when we went and found Saddam Hussein hiding in his spider hole, and we were able to go and drag him out and give him back to the Iraqi people to go and put on trial, and that's what they did. And we weren't able to go and get Osama bin Laden, but later on they were able to go and get Osama bin Laden, and that was after I had finished my 20-year career. So things happened there, and I knew that after 20 years, it was time for me to go in another direction, because I was finished with the Air Force. At that time, I was finished with the Air Force, and we wanted to continue and go on with our lives and have some type of semblance of staying in one location at one time, because when I was in the Air Force, basically I moved 7 times in 20 years. Okay, so if you kind of think about that, it's about moving once every 3 years. And my family was really tired of that. They wanted to stay in one location. So that one location that we chose was Spokane, Washington. Okay. And then seeing how things changed going into the airlines. Nobody was hiring back then in 2006, 2007, except for the regionals. So I went into the regionals until United started hiring. And then once United started hiring, I put my application in right away for United to hire, and I got accepted. So I went from the regional into the major, and then the recession hit. So United had all these great aspirations of growing and getting bigger and hiring more people, because people, were retiring and they were getting new aircraft. And then the recession hit. So they stopped all of that, and they weren't getting the aircraft that they were expecting. In fact, they decided to go in a different way and downscale everything so that they can go and merge with another company called Continental Airlines. And so Continental Airlines and United Airlines merged, but for them to both be nice, for both of them to get together, they had to go and downsize each other so that their aircraft and their people could go and merge in a cohesive environment there. And that took about 5 years from that recession. And that's when they started calling us back after the 5 years. And I chose to stay out an extra 4 years so that I can watch my kids graduate from high school and college.
Thank you. I am going to invite Addison Duncan over. If you want to unmute Addison, just because the question piggybacks on some of the things you were talking about with regard to military service.
Fantastic.
Addison?
Hi.
Hello,
My question was, what would you say to someone wanting to join in the Air Force in any capacity, whether that's medical or wanting to fly planes? What would being in the Air Force on the day-to-day entail, and what kind of character would you need to be able to do something like that?
Okay. First off, Addison, when you go into the Air Force, the biggest thing I have to say on that one is go to college first. Okay. Go to college first, get your 4 year degree, whatever degree that you want, even if it's in nursing or if as a pilot, whatever degree you want, engineering, if you want computer science or anything like that, but always get your degree first. Because when you go into the Air Force, once you have your 4 year degree, you can become an officer in the Air Force. And that's the way you want to go, is to become an officer in the Air Force. Officers are the ones that are going to go and help make the decisions, help shape the Air Force there, and that would be my first thing, is to go and get your 4 year degree. Then, when you go into Air Force, in the medical field, the medical field is a little bit different than the regular Air Force because it diverges from the main path of the Air Force. From maintenance and aviation and communications and whatnot. That's going to be the regular path. The medical field with nurses and doctors, they have their own promotion scale and their own field, and I'm not an expert in that medical field. I just know that their promotion rates are completely different than the regular Air Force, and so because they have so much more extra schooling. So when the doctors come into the Air Force, they typically come in as captains. When nurses come in, I think they come in as first lieutenants. So it's a little bit different. Most of the regular guys like myself came in as a second lieutenant, and we worked ourselves up. So usually as a second lieutenant, you're a second lieutenant for 2 years. Then you're a first lieutenant for 2 years. Then you're a captain for about 8 years, 8 to 9 years. And then you're a major for about 4 to 5 years. And then you're a lieutenant colonel for about 4 years. And then you become a full bird colonel after about the 20 to 22 years or so time frame. So did I answer your question, Mr. Addison? Was there any more?
One of the other parts, I guess, of the question was, what kind of character do you think someone needs to have to be able to do something like the military? Like, is there a specific characteristics that you want to make sure are like stronger, or is it kind of an anybody can do it kind of job?
Well, it's not anybody can do it, but as far as the character is concerned, you have to be confident in your abilities to go and make decisions, because you're going to be the decision maker as an officer. So you have to be confident in your decision making. And if it's not, you're going to have to be able to go and listen to the folks that are around you with respect to your courses of actions. They're going to go and present about 2 or 3 courses of actions. Each person is going to present about 2 or 3 different courses of actions. And then from those, you're going to have to go and weigh those courses of actions with the people that you have around you, and you're going to have to come up with one. It might not be the best one, but it may be the most effective course of action. It might not be the most popular one, but it's going to be the one that's going to go and get the job done. And realize that the military, it's all about the results, getting the job done. It might not be the prettiest, but it's going to be mission accomplished.
Wonderful. Thank you, Addison. We have Spencer in the queue. He also has a question for you.
Yes, Spencer.
Hello, this is a little off topic, but what would someone do to get like what is your advice for someone who would like to go into the field of computer science? Like, what would you do to prepare for college?
Well, with regards to computer science, a lot of the things that you do with computer science are much like engineering. Mathematics is huge in computer science, because you're taking programming language, you're taking all the programming languages, and you're having to rewrite it into the computer language, something that the computer knows how to uh, um, how to compile. So you're looking at ones and zeros with regards to that, and mathematics is going to be huge. Typing, being able to go and type rather than doing the one finger thing or your thumbs, on the phone. Actually having a computer in front of you and being able to type and clack on that computer is phenomenal in that aspect. Uh, as far as anything else, English, not so much. Science and biology, you can go and put science and into programming. You just have to be able to go and learn how to go and speak science into mathematics. Because I would believe that science and biology would take a lot of mathematics, especially formulas and whatnot, to go and put into some type of computer and into some type of computer programming. As far as computer science, there's different things. You can be a programmer, you can be a data inputter. As far as computer science, there's various avenues within computer science that it will allow you to go and take and you can use that career field. Mind you, though, that the computer science, I did do the computer science degree. However, since I went in as a navigator into the Air Force and as I went in as a pilot, I haven't used my computer science degree except for, maybe to go and write proficiency reports on other folks there. So I'm one that you have to get a degree, yes, but if you wanted to go and get it and into flying, you're not going to use your degree in that capacity unless you go into that field. For example, if you go into accounting at the university, and then you can go and become a finance officer, you're actually using your career, your degree. If you go into culinary arts and then you go into services, you can actually use your degree as far as services. Hotel restaurant management does a lot of servicing. So as far as becoming a maintenance officer, there's no degree called maintenance officers. As far as that is concerned, you can go and get a degree in literature, a degree in journalism. You can go and get a degree in theater, but they will go and teach you and to become a maintenance officer. They will go and educate you more whenever you get into the Air Force, and that's what I did. They had to go and teach me how to become a navigator because there is no career field called navigator in college. There is no career field called pilot in college. So you just have to have a degree to get into the Air Force, and then they will go and further your training there. You have to show them that you have the aptitude to learn. Did that answer your question, Spencer?
We'll take it as a yes. Thank you. All right, I'm going to bring Janelle over to ask a question. If you would unmute yourself, Janelle.
Hello. My question was, are there any career choices you regret or wish you did differently? And that can include your college education or high school or when you got your private pilot license or the Air Force. Just anything during your career that you regret or you wish you could have done in a different way.
Well, if there was anything I wish I could have done in a different way, it would have been to have come back a little bit sooner than what I did into the airlines, because I really missed flying when I was out for 10 years, doing my property management and whatnot. I really, really missed flying. But I did want to go and finish with my kids, watching them grow in high school and college, watching them finish with their their sporting activities. And my son was a hockey player. My daughter loved to ride horses, so I was able to go and watch that. She also loved to play softball. My son played baseball, so I was able to go and watch all of that. But if I would have really liked to have come back a little bit sooner. I think it would have made things a little bit easier as far as a financial burden is concerned for me. But and I really really do like flying. I mean, where else can I go to different countries, different locations? I mean, and it's 80 degrees here, but it's 30 degrees up in Montana, or it's 80 degrees here and it's 110 down in Ecuador. Going and checking out the equator. And I get to go and do different things. Like I did go and check out the equator once. I did go, out and check out an old sawmill out in Albuquerque, how they went and converted a sawmill into a shopping plaza. And that was kind of interesting, fascinating. And I just did that this last weekend. That was really interesting and fascinating. Different things that are in these different cities, these different countries that I go to. Did that answer your question, Janelle?
Yes, sir, that did answer my question. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sashi, if you want to unmute, you should be able to speak.
Hello, Sashi. Probably have to unmute yourself, Sashi.
All right, we'll give it another second. We'll see. We will try with Veda. How about that? And we'll come back to Sashi. Can you unmute Veda?
I have a question. How did you talk with the Air Force when you asked them to pay for your college degree in computer science?
What I did was I went into the ROTC program there, and I told them, I says that I asked them that if they had any type of scholarships. They said yes, we do. Not for pilots, but we do have one for navigators, and you can have a scholarship as a nav tech. Is to where you would go in as a navigator, but you have to come out with a technical degree. And I said, okay, sign me up. And so what I had to do is I had to go and take a test with the Air Force. It was called back then it was called the AFOQT, Air Force Officers Qualifying Test. I had to go and take the test, show that I had the aptitude to become a navigator. And then as soon as I did that, then they awarded me the scholarship to go and pay for my college.
Also, I have another question. After you retired from the Air Force, you said you started a business, right? So what led you to start that business?
Well, I got furloughed from the airlines. And because I got furloughed from the airlines, I had a couple of 3 properties that I owned myself. And I was managing those properties there. And then other people that were up in Fairchild, it was because of the recession, they couldn't sell their homes. So a lot of my old Air Force buddies that couldn't sell their homes realized that I had properties that I was managing. So they went and asked me to go and manage their homes. And so I started managing their homes along with my home. So I got into a property management business. And so it was kind of a niche market because they couldn't sell their homes for 5 or 6 years for what they paid for them. Because I don't know if you are familiar with real estate, how it goes up and down, and it's on a cyclical time of procession. There, about every 4 or 5 years, the real estate market goes up and comes down, and goes up and comes down. And so in that aspect, it was on a down market. They couldn't sell it for what they paid for their homes. So they asked me to go and manage it for them. And I was able to go and help them on out and make some money at the same time.
Okay, thank you, sir. Have a good
You
day.
bet.
Thank you, Vida. Alyssa, you should be able to unmute yourself and ask your question.
I'm going to try and up your volume maybe. So unmute and try your volume up. I saw you trying.
There she is.
My question was if you could tell us like a little bit more about the business that you had, because like on the email it said that you had a business, and like if you had it while you were like doing like being a pilot, like how you balanced being a pilot and having a business.
And that's the tough one. Yes. Like I said, I was in a property management business. I've had it for 10 years. I still have it for my own properties that I go and manage. But it is really, really tough because when I manage this business, it's all, real estate or property management, what I have to do is I have to go out to where my properties are, and they were up in Spokane. So I was doing all of this up in Spokane. I had to go any empty homes, I had to go and show the homes. And then when the tenants would move out, I had to go and check them out of the home. And when they moved in, I had to go and check them into the home, make sure that everything was good with the home. And if there's any type of maintenance that has to go on, I have to get the tenants to go and let the maintainers to go in so that they can go and fix the issue that was wrong. So if, for example, the plumbing, the something happened with the sink or the garbage disposal, I would have to get a plumber to go on out there and take care of it. So it's tough when I was with the airlines, but when I wasn't with the airlines, I was right there 24/7 in Spokane, when I was furloughed, and I was able to go and manage that on my own. Getting all the people, showing the prospective tenants, checking out the old tenants, and making sure that repairs were done on a constant basis for these homes. Now that I'm back with United Airlines, I'm working about 15 days out of the month. So I've got 15 days that I can go and devote, the other 15 days that I can devote to working the management process itself. So, and my schedule now, I usually work 4 on. I've got about 4 off. Then I work 4 on, and then I have about 3 off. And typically, I'm working on the weekends, which is great because plumbers don't work on the weekends, electricians don't work on the weekends. So I'm able to go and call these plumbers, electricians, and a handyman to go and work during the week, which is their actual work week to get things done. So it's difficult. You're balancing things, but you're constantly, working, doing something throughout the whole week, throughout the 7 days.
Thank you. Kind of
Thank
along
you.
the same lines, I'm going to bring Carter over to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Carter.
Thank you. So I had a couple questions. So how much time did you spend at home versus on airplanes and other airports when you were flying for United? Where did you sleep when you were not at your home? So like were there lodging in other airports? And then also, how often did you have to fly overnight? Were there long hours where you had to go overnight and overseas? And then also, like, compared to a normal job is 40 hours a week, how would you say being a pilot compares to that number?
Well, that's a good question because the answer changes based off of whether I was in the Air Force or whether I was with United. So the timeline or the time in the jet Typically, we don't fly more than 8 hours. At United, we typically don't fly more than 8 hours at a time, and that's cumulative. So let's say, for example, I'm supposed to go from here to Chicago, Chicago to San Francisco. It'll be about 2.5 hours going up to Chicago and about 3.5 hours, maybe 4 hours going to San Francisco. So that is going to be about 7 hours there, and it's going to be your duty time, your duty period there that you're flying, and that's with the airlines. So typically it's 2, maybe 3 flights a day if you are doing short flights, like from here to San Antonio back to here. When I say here, I mean Houston. So from Houston to San Antonio back to Houston, Houston to Chicago. You can do three legs like that. So, but typically you don't fly more than about 8 hours when you're on the small aircraft. Now, when you're on the bigger aircraft, the heavier aircraft, the 76 or the 777 or 787, what you have is you have an augmented crew. Augmented crew means that there's 3, if not 4 pilots there, and they all share the flying duties there. So they can go anywhere from 13 to about 18 hours, going like from here all the way on over to Sydney, Australia. So I think that's about a 14, maybe 15-hour flight. Or going from Houston all the way on over to New Delhi, India. So they can go and do those particularly long flights, but there's 3, if not 4 pilots on board to go and share all those duties. What I was talking is just 2 pilots, myself and my first officer, going from here, from Houston to Chicago to San Fran. As far as lodging, yes, we have what's known as a hotel desk, and the hotel desk will go and get us lodging based off of our contract as to where they're going to go and put us. A lot of times it's in a Marriott or Marriott like environment. We also go to Hilton. We also do other hotels that typically have some type of food around for us to go and partake of, depending upon if we're there for a short period of time or a long period of time. And so all of these rules come in for the airlines there. As far as the flying time is concerned, in the Air Force, boy, you're at the needs of the Air Force in that aspect right there. Typically, you don't fly more than about 12 hours as a 2-pilot crew. But you're at the needs of the Air Force. Whatever the Air Force wants, you're going to go and fly. A lot of times they will go and put you with an augmented crew. As far as your lodgings there in the Air Force, it all depends on where you're going. Some of these airports that we go and fly into and out of in the Air Force, they are unimproved pavements that you're flying into. They don't have any type of lodging, so you might be in a tent. I've flown and gone into a tent to go and get my crew rest there, and then you're turning around and flying out, about 12 to 15 hours later after you've had your crew rest, just to get that airplane out of there and get it safe away from the hostile environment that you are flying into. So lodging in the military might not be as pristine. However, you are in the Air Force. The Air Force has better lodging than the Army. Definitely a lot better lodging than the Navy and the Marines. So.
For answering that, we have one last question for you, and then we are up on time. Paolo, Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask our question.
Try and up your volume and see if that works.
Hello.
Go for it.
Hello, Paulo.
Hello. What advice would you give to us students in choosing a career just like yours, sir?
As far as choosing a career, basically go to college first and find what you love to do in college. Because if you notice that, I went and got my degree in computer science, but I did not use it based off of what I did elsewhere. Once you get out of college, once you get that degree, then you need to go and find something that you love to do, whether it's the military or whether it's flying for the airlines. Go and get your private pilot's license. If you are into real estate, go and into real estate and become a real estate agent. And then continuously improve yourself to becoming a broker, to become something else, own your own business. After that, but start learning something. But always start off with that college degree that shows people that you have the aptitude and to go and learn, and then after that, go and follow your heart, and do what you want to do after that. Don't necessarily go and chase the paycheck, although the paycheck is nice. Do what your heart wants to do.
All right. Thank you and have a good night.
You bet.
Awesome. So students, we have arrived at 7:30. We are just a little bit past. I apologize, but obviously we thank you for your time. If you will please help me in two things, students. One, there is a survey in the chat. If you will please take a moment to take a very brief survey so we can help meet your needs in these Distinguished Speaker Series, that would be amazing. And if you will please help thank Officer James Ouellette in his time with us tonight in the chat. As you exit, please throw a thank you in there. Fill out that survey. Our next DSS is November 7th. Please join us. Talk to your career and college counselors about what EfTA does. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact myself or Monica about Education for Tomorrow Alliance, or talk to your career and college counselor. Students, at this time, go ahead, say thank you, and exit. Mr. Ouellette, if you will please stay on so that we can get a picture of you without you talking. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, students.